Power Talk live here at 3733 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. And it's been a bit of a ramshackle day today, but I'll tell you, it is nothing more. It's so beautiful to hear the lilting notes of Stan Getz playing bossa nova, one-note samba with Charlie Bird. And let's just be clear, without my next guest, so much of American music, America's only true art form known as jazz, would never have become as popular without the work of my guest. And that includes the fusing of Brazilian rhythms with jazz. It includes African American classical music on impulse, and it includes the fusion of electric and acoustic instrumentation with his own label, CTI. Without further ado, Creed Taylor, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Oh, hi. I'm coming to you, by the way, Jake, from Florida.
Oh, absolutely. It is an honor to talk to you, man.
Well, it's great speaking with you. So how we head from here on out?
Well, let's just take it as it comes, because we'll get as much in as we can here. I wanted to just talk to you, if you can go back in your memory bank best you can, if you could talk to the audience about what your concept of the word jazz is.
That's a very heavy question.
Take as long as you want.
It's extremely creative music. Generally speaking, there's no notation on jazz solos, and there can be jazz ensembles with highly arranged ensembles. But jazz is a really such a wide musical art that it's hard to pin it down. I think you just have to go. Who are some of the people who were very important with this idiom, and go from there.
I mean, you were born in Appalachia, and you should have been going to Bill Monroe concerts, but you were getting off on what these cats were doing. What was intoxicating to you about, was it the rhythm of the music when you heard Dizzy and Bird? I mean, I want you to talk about what hooked you in to the language of melodic improvisation, otherwise known as jazz.
Well, it wasn't Stan Getz and it wasn't Gene Krupa, but going back, it might have been Woody Herman, Gene Krupa, Elliott Lawrence. Those bands, the big bands, did come through that part of Virginia, especially to VPI, Virginia Tech, and I jumped at any chance to go hear these bands, which not only had amazing jazz ensemble work, but fantastic soloists. And it became very clear to me that that's what I was going to do. And I was really looking forward to getting out of the, let's say, hillbilly idiom. Although I do appreciate what they were doing, like the Carter family, which lived a couple of mountains over from me, were the real creators of country music.
Absolutely.
And Johnny Cash, for that matter, he married into the family. But for me, a kind of minor wailing and not a great deal of improvising per se just didn't appeal to me, and I jumped at the chance of getting out of that atmosphere whenever the moment came.
I mean, is it fair to say, I mean, I asked you about your definition of the word jazz, and it is a heavy question because you saw it firsthand as a businessman, as a producer. You saw the music change over time from big band and swing to bebop to cool jazz. I mean, how did you develop your taste? I mean, this is so important for future generations. There is we don't have the radio dial to play a 12-minute track anymore. Okay. We have a lot of digital music now. It's not played by humanity. And I just wanted you to talk ultimately about when you left hillbilly country and you came up to New York and you started at Bethlehem. I mean, you had Bryce Rhodey with the Australian quartet. You had Oscar Pettiford, Mingus, Herbie Mann. I mean, how would you talk about being a talent scout? How did you evaluate talent at Bethlehem?
Since we're going to be talking about Stan Getz, I can tell you how I got permanently, but definitely hooked on this idiom jazz. I was a sophomore at Duke University, and I was sitting out on the chapel steps listening to a jazz station, if you can believe it, at Durham, North Carolina, Charlie Cash, and he played Autumn, the Woody Herman summer sequence, and I heard a guy named, well, I never heard him before, Stan Getz. And at that point, I'd never heard about Stan, but I thought, I'm going to record this man somehow. I'm going to get to New York and record this man. It was the most beautiful melodic jazz solo I had ever heard. It rolled off his horn like the final gliss of summer. And I just have to say, that was the most exquisite jazz player I had ever heard. And really, I don't know what else I can say, but then I went for some of the really great. They were called dance bands, I guess, but they were really jazz bands, like Elliott Lawrence, certainly, and Boyd Rayburn, and Stan Kenton, too, for that matter. So I graduated from Duke, and while I was there, I formed a band called the Five Dukes.
Yeah, right. It's Francis Farley, Art Stewart, Ed Belucci, 1950. The Five Dukes. Continue.
Yeah, that's it. And well, we played at Duke, and then summers we went to Virginia Beach, and I had a gig at a place called, of all names, Bop City, and I started improvising because I figured it was a good chance to get this out of my system, and I don't think too many of these people know this thing called jazz, so they won't know whether I'm playing good stuff or bad stuff. So I kind of got it out of my system, and I was really I appreciate that whole 2 summers away from Duke and at Virginia Beach at Bop City.
Could you? I mean, was there something to be said for the fact that you were down in an area of the country where segregation was very severe and racism was very overt, and yet again, Stan Getz, you're talking about a melodic genius, perfect pitch, perfect tone, great time feel, huge ears, total natural savant. But what was it about? Did you gravitate towards the African American musician specifically because of the genius? Improvisation is really hard. I interviewed Barry Harris yesterday, and he was talking about going to see cats play. Tommy Flanagan, who was the best, Kenny Burrell were the 2 best guys in Detroit. And Barry Harris was like, my God, man, I got to learn how to improvise. And that's not easy to do. But the African American cats could do it. And I was wondering how much that played a role into you gravitating towards this music.
Well, when I went to Roanoke to hear, say, Woody Herman, I also went up the hill where there was a dance hall, and they booked black bands, and I thought, man, these guys can really play. I didn't know that this was going on. I'd heard Woody Herman,
sure,
on the radio and whatever, but the color thing never entered my mind. Well, it entered my mind. I had 3 playmates, and they were all brothers, and they lived not too far from where I grew up, and we played marbles, and they were black and I was white, and never crossed my mind that there was something going on here until I went to Roanoke to hear one of these bands, and I got off a Greyhound bus and went into the station on my way in. I saw this two fountains. One said white and the other said black, and I thought, what the heck is going on here? And then I found that the black bands played up the hill at this one club, and then the white bands played down next to the railroad tracks at another auditorium. And I began to get a feel. I love the black bands and I love the white bands, but the issue of race just was not a problem with me at all. I if anybody asked me, I don't know, what is this all about? My playmates are actually a family named People. My best friend was Tommy Peoples, and we played marbles, and we talked about jazz. But if I went up to the Whitegate schoolhouse that was white, there was a guy there. I was casually talking with him, and he said, "No," I said, "By the way, Jack, do you like jazz?" And he says, "No, it sounds like a hog scratching his ass." What?
I love it.
So anyway,
unbelievable! What a hillbilly! I love it.
Oh yeah, I mean the Carter family, they're pretty famous. So
sure.
But anyway, what are you going to do? The Presbyterian Church, Baptist Church, and
did it spark your curiosity when you did see this, how real segregation was, though? I mean, you obviously were not raised. Your parents didn't raise you that way. I mean, people are taught these kinds of cultural biases. So did you begin to become more intrigued now that you all of a sudden realized that there were these different places where you would see different rhythms? I mean, these African rhythms came from Haiti and Cuba and, up through Congo Square. It was completely different. You talked.
Well, at my age, I was hardly sophisticated enough to question the
looking back on it,
of course.
Yeah. I mean, people will say that they would go to see Stan Kenton open, and blasting horns, and then they'd see the Basie band, and Freddie Green was playing ka-chink, 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 the rhythm, and the drummer was keeping the rhythm based on Freddie Green. It was two entirely different modes of music. So I'm just looking back, I'm just trying to get an idea. Here's the bottom line. Can you talk about, this is something I wanted to ask you. You talk about the first time that you sat down and you got to know John Coltrane as a man, and you brought him to Impulse. Can you talk about how you developed a relationship with John?
Well, I began to listen to his records. He did all of his recording at Rudy Van Gelder. That's where I recorded also. And I also went to the Village Vanguard where John was playing, and I didn't go one night, but I went every night that he was booked there, and we talked, and simultaneously somehow the subject of a separate label at ABC Paramount for jazz might be a good idea. I think I'm going to try to talk him into it. And one of the first guys I got was John Coltrane, because we had a rapport. We hung out together as much as John. John was not really a guy who hung out, but
yeah.
We got together, let's say.
He always had his horn in his mouth. But I mean, this is something that Harry Levine, you worked with him, and it was dubbed the new wave in jazz. I just would love you to put my audience inside the studio and what your role was, because was it just get out of the way and let these guys create? Were there charts? I mean, this was an exploratory, impassioned, new vocabulary to the lexicon of jazz. I mean, what was your role when you brought in, even though you and Train had a good rapport, what kinds of things did you do to create the vibe in order to get the music that Creed Taylor produced is the most burning instrumental improvisational music in the world's history. I'm willing to say that on the air right now. What was your role? What was your role in cultivating that improvisation?
I fell into it as soon as I got out of Virginia. Then I went to Duke, North Carolina. It was not exactly your.
It wasn't a bastion. Yeah.
You know, and then I had the pleasure of going to Korea. I was in the Marine Corps for 2 years, and I had a wind-up tape recorder, LP recorder, and I played it in my bunker, you know, when things got quieted down. Anyway, as soon as I got out, I went back home to Virginia and announced to my family I was going to New York because I think I'm going to go up there and make some records. And that was about it. I'm, oversimplifying it, but I went to, you heard of Charlie's Tavern, of course.
Where was this?
In New York City.
Okay, I've heard of Charlie. I also knew Jim and Andy's, but I didn't not know.
Okay. Jim and Andy's was another place like Charlie's Tavern, but Charlie's Tavern was situated in the back alleyway next to Birdland, and all the guys would come in there and have a drink between sets or whatever, and I got to meet. Actually, I met Quincy Jones there. He was lived in Chicago. He came there at the same time I did, and we became very good friends. And I wound up recording quite a few things with Quincy, and that was kind of the source of getting off the ground. And I ran into this record company called Bethlehem.
Yes.
And just to be perfectly blunt about it, they didn't know what they were doing, and I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to set the record straight, and I said, I think I can make some records for you that's going to pull out of this hole you're in. You had no choice but to say, oh, okay. So I went to this club and I heard this, I thought, fantastic singer called Chris Connor.
Sure.
And I talked to Chris, and we decided, after going over a lot of songs, and she knew all of Jerome Kern and all the great songs that she had actually sung a lot of them with, I guess, Stan Kenton. I don't think she was ever on Woody's band, but anyway, we did something called Lullabies of Birdland, and I got the local disc jockey. That's what they were called then. I don't know what are we calling them now, but I said, I've got this record by a new singer called Chris Connor, and would you like to come in and record an introduction, and we'll put it on the 10-inch LP that we're making? And so there's this guy at WNEW in New York, and it opened up with, hi folks, glad you're tuned in. We're playing Chris Connor, and you might be interested in buying her record. I think it's on sale at downtown, whatever it was, and that worked. And then Birdland got interested because there was radio play on Chris Connor in New York. They booked her, and when they booked her, I got them to put in front of the door a life-size cutout of Chris Connor appearing here tonight. And just one thing like that led to another, and I got to meet distributing people. If you didn't have a distributor then, you didn't get into a record store. And, just learning all the business uh, curves and how to get along and get the music to the people, so you could continue recording this fantastic idiom called jazz. And that's in a nutshell about what I did.
Well, we're having a ball talking to Creed Taylor. By the way, we were scheduled to hit an hour ago, so we're going to have to we got about 10 more minutes, but we're going to have to find a time to do a lot more, because I just want to go back. You said at Bethlehem, these cats didn't know what they were doing, and you felt like you could create some music and get some peeps in there that could get them out of the hole. Could you talk about what ideas you had that were different from what Bethlehem was doing at that time?
Well, the guy who funded this thing was a young Swiss guy, and he met a guy who had a girlfriend who worked at Arthur Murray, the dance school.
Sure.
And I found out from his activity that his girlfriend was teaching this particular guy how to dance, and I think if you talk to her, she might go by and see this guy Gus, who runs Bethlehem, and you might start a connection there. So he in effect turned the distribution thing on, but he didn't know about the distributing records either. But I had learned, and from there I got to know all the jazz guys and the Oscar Pettifords and Kay Winding, J.J. Johnson right off the bat, and we all liked the same thing, jazz. Didn't matter whether I was a player, but I was an enthusiastic young person. That's sort of how I got into it, and then I read Billboard magazine, which you're very familiar with, I'm sure, and I found out that they were starting a record company called ABC Paramount. So I got an appointment with the president of ABC Paramount, and I said, hello, my name's Creed Taylor. I think I can make some good records that would get you off to a great start, whatever, And he said, do you know, do you think you know a good song? And what am I going to say? Of course I do. Jerome Kern, Gershwin, and all that stuff, yeah. So I started booking studios, and I called Oscar Pettiford, and I called Kay Winding and JJ, and we began recording pretty soon after that at Rudy Van Gelder's in New Jersey. And that was the seed that started me in the business. And I was very much interested in radio. At that time, radio was the thing that's going to get your records into the store and into the hands of the customers. I also learned that after midnight, the R&B jocks came on, and there was a certain impact that they certainly had in the marketplace, and I got to know quite a few. I went up to Harlem, 125th Street, and I met some dealers up there, and I got to know what they would buy, and did they know who J.J. Johnson was, for instance? They have heard of Miles Davis. Well, J.J. Johnson. I said, well, I've got this thing with J.J. Johnson and Kay Winding. They're two trombone players, and I also have a singer named Chris Connor. And I got familiar with the retail business in Harlem, and it wasn't that much difference in the retail business in Manhattan, but there was a certain enthusiasm that was going on there, with the Apollo Theater and all that. And without going into any more detail, And that's sort of how I got into this business.
I just want to be clear before we wrap up part one here. You were taking traditional American songbook material and having jazzers come in and doing instrumental versions of those songs. Am I reading that correctly?
That fundamentally, that was it, sure.
That was your beginning, okay? And I think that this is just a perfect place to... Creed, you're already dropping serious knowledge. I mean, can we pick up on part 2 next Saturday? Are you available?
Can we make that tentative? I'm certainly available. I'm not sure if it's next Saturday or not, but how do you want to
I'll
check up?
I'll call you. I'll call you this week, and we'll. I want to lock you in. We have a lot more to do. This was just sort of I really just had a ball, but I'll call you this week at the number that I have for you. I'll call you and we'll set it up.
Okay, I'll be here.
Love always, man. Thank you so much, Creed.
Great talking with you,
Jake Feinberg. Good talking to you, man.
No, I was looking for a phone. Oh, I have a phone number. Okay, Jake.
Yeah. All right. Listen, Creed, I'll send you a copy of this email too. We'll be in touch.
Okay, Jake.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Dom Fumolaro, Billy Cobham, Creed Taylor, still creating new history, new information. The Jake Feinberg Show, the demise of the Jake Feinberg Show has been greatly exaggerated. The show will go on forever. Thanks to Mike Roper. We'll see you next week. Peace.
I don't know. I've been playing blues for quite a while. I've been around the world a few times. But I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues. Let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
You're on a gig.
And ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it, you ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either your old lady gonna do yagging you and arguing with you, telling you what you get up and do something.